Xia Zhanghai and Liang Qiaoyin loved their sons deeply, and like any normal parents, did everything to raise them as worthy and happy individuals. The greatest tragedy for any person has been and will always be the loss of their child. Unfortunately, this is exactly what happened to them. Due to a gas leak at a factory, followed by an explosion, their eldest son tragically lost his life. The blast was so powerful that there was nothing left of the young man's body. Heartbroken, the parents scattered their son's ashes in the mountains and returned to a life that would never be the same. The mother could not come to terms with the loss. The emotional blow her nervous system had to endure was more than she could bear, and the unthinkable happened. She became paralyzed below the waist due to a stroke, which also caused cognitive impairments. Her mental abilities regressed to the level of a 5-year-old child. Her memory was affected as well. She forgot her children and struggled to recognize her husband, who had to remind her daily of who he was. It seemed that nothing could pull them out of this despair. Doctors were at a loss, and the family didn't have the money to afford proper rehabilitation for the poor woman. One can only imagine what her husband went through at that time. He not only had to care for his wife, but also earn a living and somehow deal with growing depression and despair. Their second son was a first-year college student studying in another city. The father sternly warned him when the son wanted to drop out to help that if he did so, he would not accept him back home. "We've already suffered great losses, son. Don't make the situation worse. Your mother is my responsibility, not yours. If you love us, please study well, do what you must, and look forward instead of dwelling on the past." "I'll manage, everything will be okay," the father encouraged his son. When Liang said these words, he must have swallowed a lump in his throat with difficulty, probably no longer believing in a happy ending and preparing for the worst. But fate had other plans. One day, something incredible happened. The couple was watching TV when the woman, with a trembling hand, pointed at the screen in excitement. For the first time in 2 years, she managed to utter something clearly. She said the name of their deceased son. Liang looked closely and noticed that the police officer giving an interview on the screen indeed bore some resemblance to their son. For the first time, Liang saw his wife in such a good mood. For the first time in 2 years, the corners of her mouth slightly lifted in a faint smile that only he could notice. Her eyes sparkled. She thought she was seeing her son. Liang didn't hesitate. He quickly grabbed a notebook, wrote down the officer's name, and took photos. Then he approached his wife and said their son was in another city, working, and that he would call soon. The woman lit up with happiness and asked, "When?" "Soon," Liang replied, and immediately began searching for information about the unexpected guest who had appeared to them from the TV screen. The search was long and unsuccessful until, in 2013, he reached out to a show that specialized in finding people similar to Wait For Me. They were intrigued by the story and quickly located the police officer named Zhang Jingwei, informing him of the situation. To their surprise, Zhang immediately agreed to appear on the show, but first he requested Liang's contact information to discuss everything beforehand. The young man turned out to be an officer of the Public Security Bureau. "Pretend to be our son just once, please," Liang pleaded during their conversation. "All right," the young man replied without hesitation, greatly surprising Liang. He prepared his wife by saying their son would call soon. At the scheduled time, 3 days before the show, Zhang called and said, "Hello, Mom." At that moment, the inner world of the grieving mother transformed. She asked, "Son, why do you look so old? How many years have I not seen you?" Zhang replied that he would visit and hug her soon because he missed her too. Thus began an incredible story that, if it hadn't happened in real life, would have been hard to believe. Finally, the long-awaited meeting took place on the show. Everyone in the audience and watching on TV knew the truth, except for this woman. The organizers created a spectacular event. The grieving mother regained herself, the police officer became a national hero, and it seemed like a happy ending where everyone could move on. But no, this kind of interaction became a norm in their lives. Jiang always found time and for many years continued communicating with his newfound mother several times a month, encouraging her. For 11 years now, Jiang has maintained contact with the woman, and during his vacations, he always makes time to visit their home for a couple of days. When asked by journalists, he simply responds that sometimes there's no other choice, and that such an act is neither deceit nor cruelty. Sometimes, to protect our loved ones, we cover the horrors with a blanket of fairy tales. Moreover, Jiang considers this a part of his duty, a form of service. Besides Xiaozhanghai, he also has many others he visits to share a bit of his attention. He actively engages in charity work, which he views as the sole purpose of his life. Since the beginning of their interactions, the woman started recovering rapidly. However, it took her a long time to recall the moment of her real son's death. Years went by, and the young police officer never thought of abandoning the elderly couple. Then, in 2023, the woman's health improved to the point where she began to understand and remember many things. When the truth finally became clear to her, she already considered Jiang a part of her family. In late September 2024, Zia wrote a heartfelt letter to the Shanghai Public Security Bureau, expressing her gratitude to her son. Thank you for training such a kind, compassionate, and responsible police officer. For more than a decade, Jiang quietly took on the role of a son, bringing new life to our once grief-stricken family, she wrote. She no longer suffers. She lives happily, focusing on her health recovery, warm conversations with her husband, and cherishing rare but precious walks with her son. Jiang spares neither money nor time to essentially fly to a woman who was once a stranger to him, offering her his care. For example, in 2016, he brought his parents to Shanghai for a tour. And in 2018, he traveled to Shaanxi province to celebrate the new year with them. Just think about it. This isn't just a day or even a month. Jiang has been doing this for an entire 11 years. Jiang's dedication to a pair of strangers has deeply moved many people on Chinese social media. And here's what they wrote. Thank you for your kindness. The relationship you share with this couple has long surpassed the boundaries of blood ties. I was moved to tears. Even in a world full of conflicts and disasters, such stories bring warmth and hope. Let's also add something from ourselves and share our thoughts about what we've seen and heard. What do you think?